Well, I was gonna introduce myself, but Junior already did that, so just jump right into it. What comes to mind when I say the word police? Police, like over the years, our image of police officers, it's been changing. They're supposed to be a symbol of justice, of security. They're supposed to be the kind of people who we can trust with our neighborhoods, our cities, and even our lives. But over the years, that image has been deteriorating. This is mostly due to the fairly recent explosion in videos and news stories of police brutality being shared on social media, such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. So, and like a lot of these news stories have one major thing in common, which is the place in which they're set, which is America. And now obviously, all of this, it doesn't apply to every police officer. In fact, the majority of police officers do their job well enough and don't feel the need to abuse people just because they can. But yeah. As I said before, a lot of this abusing is happening in the United States of America. And a lot of that abuse is due to racism. You may have seen or heard certain stories on the news about Michael Brown, right here. He was an 18-year-old African-American college student that was gunned down by a police officer in Ferguson. He's also one of the main reasons behind the Ferguson riots. Now, obviously, this is not one of the only racial-related police brutality cases, but it is one of the most well-known. Other cases include the case of Thaddeus McCarroll, a mentally unstable 23-year-old African-American man who was gunned down in his own home, and then the case of Courtney Silvera, a 10-year-old African-American boy whose leg was broken after filming a police officer. So these cases, just to give you some insight on the situation in America right now. Now, some of you may already know or may have at least heard a bit about the situation, but you may not know just how bad it is. So I have some comparisons to show you, which will hopefully put this whole issue into perspective. In Australia, there have been 94 fatal police shootings between 1992 and 2011, whereas in the US, there have been 97 fatal police shootings in the month of March 2015 alone. So, as you can see, this situation in America, it's getting out of hand. I mean, look, there have been 55 fatal police shootings in England and Wales combined in the last 24 years, whereas in the US there have been 59 in the first 24 days of 2015. So, with these cases and with these statistics, it's not difficult to see why our image of police officers has been changing. So, keeping in mind this fairly recent change in our perspective towards police officers, how will we view them in the future? Or how will they be in the future? Well, if we keep going in the direction that we currently are, which is pretty downwards, then police brutality could be a much bigger problem than it already is, obviously. But there is hope. Already, there have been a lot of governments around the world who have been looking into this issue and have been passing certain laws and regulations to limit the amount of police-related deaths in their country. One of the most notable being, again, the USA. So, what has the United States of America been doing to crack down on police brutality? Well, just last year, the idea was introduced that all police officers should wear body cameras. This allows us to survey and to record police behavior while they're in the field. So anything they do that could be considered misconduct will be recorded and they can be held accountable for it. And just in case the whole constantly being watched by your supervisors thing didn't work, they also demilitarized the police force, which means that the police force no longer got their equipment from the military. So you can see that governments around the world, they've already been looking into this issue and are willing to make big changes in their legal systems in order to help try to prevent it. It's not only this, but there have been, and currently are, several inventions and innovations being developed. Excuse me. That would hopefully decrease the amount of police-related deaths. One of the most recent being the bullet airbag. Now, it does look a bit like a toy, but it's a very serious thing. The bullet airbag is basically a gun extension that would prevent police officers from unnecessarily killing anyone. How it works is quite simple. A police officer would place the orange extension at the front of their gun when they feel they are in a situation that is dangerous but does not quite require deadly force, such as if they are faced with a suspect with a knife or a handheld weapon, they can use this. When fired, the bullet from the gun will go into the metal ball at the front of the extension, sending it forwards at the target. It's just as accurate as a regular gun, but it's much less powerful, meaning that the victim of the bullet airbag would not be as injured as they would if they were shot with a regular gun. Another invention that was made to fulfill a similar purpose was skunk water. Now, it does have like kind of a funny name, but it's nasty stuff. Basically what it is it's a liquid that is sprayed on crowds to get them to disperse. And you can tell by the name how it does that. The liquid gives off an extremely pungent and intense smell that you wouldn't be able to stand near for more than a few minutes without getting sick. This was created in the hopes that they could disperse crowds without having to go to measures such as shooting into the crowds, shooting live rounds, which has happened before, or spraying it down with a water hose. So, it's obvious that these inventions and these laws being passed, they're not going to completely eradicate police brutality. But what they can do is bring down the amount of deaths caused by police brutality in the long run, which is a pretty big deal in itself. Police brutality has been around for a long time. We may not have known as much about it until the internet came along, and it will continue to be around in the future. I mean, I personally don't believe that we will ever be able to bring police brutality to a complete stop. But what we can do is bring down the numbers a bit. And if that's what we can do, then that's what we should do. Thank you.